Hey everybody, it's Glidercat and it's time to play. In this video, we're going to take a look at our new city builder called Kingdoms Reborn. As I record this, the game is in early access and my request for a review key was granted by the developers, so my thanks goes to them for that. Now, there are lots and lots of city builder games out there, and a new one seems to come out every other week. So, aside from being set in different settings or eras, many of these games, in my opinion, play in a very similar way. So, what does Kingdoms Reborn bring to the table that we haven't already seen dozens of times in other games? Well, there's a few things that make this game unique, and we'll touch on some of those in this first looked video. I should also mention here at the top that there is a lot to this game. I won't be able to cover everything in this video, but I do want to get this game on your radar if you're not already familiar with it. Now, let's start by taking a look at the official game trailer. Then we'll come back and discuss some of the game's mechanics that I believe are fresh and new. Here we go with the trailer. Okay, so that was the trailer. And now the trailer looks pretty nice, but in my opinion, it doesn't really show you what's unique about the game. I can think of 4 or 5 games that if you just change the look of the buildings, then they could use that same trailer. It does look nice. I don't want to slam the people who put it together. A lot of work went into that. It does look really, really nice. But I mean, how do you know that this is just not another crappy Anno game? So I'm just kidding. I actually think the Anno games are pretty great. But seriously, the trailer just shows some towns sprouting up, and in my view, it doesn't really distinguish the game from other pretty city builders. Pretty city builders. Okay, that sounds a little funny. Anyway, my point is, don't just watch the trailer and tell yourself, been there, done that. This game, in my opinion, has much more to offer than what you just saw in the trailer, pretty as it was. So let's move on. I have about 12 hours into the game at this point, and I don't know all there is to know about that. I already mentioned that. But I believe the clearest distinction that Kingdoms Reborn brings to the table, different from other city builders, is its concept of using cards. Now, when I first learned it had cards, I was initially a little turned off. I don't typically play games like Magic the Gathering or Slay the Spire, so I was a little nervous that Kingdoms Reborn wasn't going to be a true city builder. Well, not to worry, it is. It's not what I would call a traditional deck building game. There are cards, but it's not really a deck building game in my opinion, which for me is a good thing. So let's dive into how the game makes use of these cards, since it's such a prominent aspect of the gameplay. Okay, now this is the first time you see cards in the game. It's just after you pick the starting location of your city. You'll then be presented with the option to pick a free starting card. And I believe the cards you get to pick from are pretty much random, but here's an example from the start of my Let's Play series. As it turns out, this is actually a pretty good example because each of the 3 cards you see on the screen right now are actually very, very different. The first card, the one that says Wheat Seeds, unlocks a new technology or ability. Using this card will give you the ability to plant wheat for the rest of the game. So it's kind of like unlocking something from a tech tree in that sense. And there are a couple tech trees in the game as well. We'll touch on one of those a little bit later. The second card you see on the screen, it says investment. And you'll notice that this card has a little bit of a different shape. The top left corner is kind of rounded. And then at the bottom, it says global slot. With this type of card, you can place it into an expansion slot in your town center. And your entire town will get a bonus for as long as you have that card placed there. And I think there's some other games that have the same concept. Anno kind of has this a little bit, or some of the older Anno games have this concept of slotting in a buff into one of your buildings and things. So in this case, using this card shown here on the screen, your town would get a bonus of 30 gold every cycle. Now, your town center has a very limited number of slots that you can put cards into. You actually only start with a single slot, and it takes a fair amount of time to unlock additional slots. But the last thing I'll mention about these global slot cards is that you can swap them out at any time. So it's not, not a permanent decision if you decide to use one of these cards in your town center. You can always change it out later for another card to something else, some other bonus if you like. So it's not a huge, you don't need to overthink that decision. Okay, so now on to the last card that we see. This is the one that says a trading post on it. This one has the same shape as the first, but it's actually quite a bit different. I said with the first one, the wheat seeds one, that for the rest of the game, you'd be able to plant wheat if you use this card, right? You're kind of unlocking that from the tech tree, and now it's available to you. Well, with the trading post card, it's different. You're only able to build a single trading post. So if you pick this card, it's going to get placed into your hand. And when you're ready to build a trading post, you'll spend this card. So once you use it, it's gone. And you'll might be able to find more trading post cards come up later. We'll get to that. But with these cards that are kind of production buildings, once you use it, it's spent. Okay, so now once you pick your first starting card at the beginning of the game's going to present you with another choice of 3 cards, and you get to pick one more for free. Here you can see the second 3 cards that I had to choose from in my Let's Play. Let's just talk about the first card that you see here, since that one is the only one that's different from the 3 types that we've already discussed. So the card at the left, titled Productivity Book, and with the words building slot at the bottom, that's used to provide a buff or a boost to one of your production buildings, right? So earlier I mentioned your town hall has expansion slots. Well, so do your production buildings, where you can put cards and give them a boost, but it's just for that particular building. I think the production buildings only get a single slot, since that's all I've seen so far in my time playing, but there could be buildings that allow for more than one. I just don't know. But usually you have a single slot in each production building where you can place one of these buff cards like this one, which is the Productivity Book. And you can see that slotting this card into one of your production buildings is going to give you a 20% boost to that building's productivity. These buff cards also look a little different. They have that kind of cut off corner in the top. So that's how you can identify them. And if I'm making it sound complicated with the cards, it really isn't. You pick this up pretty quick once you start playing. And then in addition, I should mention here, in addition to using these cards to buff your buildings, there's also some additional ways to boost the productivity of your buildings that don't involve cards. So this isn't the only way to do it. There's a couple other ways in addition to this where you can boost the productivity and efficiency of your different production buildings. Anyway, okay, so you pick a couple cards for free right at the beginning, and then what happens? Well, every 150 seconds, you're going to be presented with 5 new cards that you can purchase for money. So these ones don't come free. You gotta buy them. And here's what that looks like. Again, this is from the first episode of my Let's Play series, so that's where I'm kind of taking this video from, or the screenshot from. At the bottom center of the screen, you can see the 2 cards that I already chose at the very beginning, the investment card and the productivity book. Those were from that first 2 sets of free cards that we get. But at the center of the screen, I now have 5 new cards that I can purchase. The ones shown here all just happen to be for production buildings, but they could have been any of the card types that we just discussed. They could have been things for your that you unlock. They could have been boosts, whatever. But these are actually all just for buildings. So that's the basics of the card system. You can learn more from my Let's Play series, but that's, I think, good enough now for this first look video. I just want to kind of introduce that mechanic to you. So basically, every 150 seconds, you're going to get a choice of cards. You can choose to buy some. You can choose to just pass and not pick any. You can buy one. You can buy multiple. And then you set out to build your village using these cards. Now, it's worth mentioning that there are a few things that you can build that don't require you having a card first. Now, the ones that I've come across so far in my playthrough, buildings that you don't need cards for, it's the houses. So, all your villagers, the housing, you can build that at any time. Storage yards, you're going to be producing, you're going to be harvesting a bunch of different products, grains, ores, all that kind of stuff. And then you're going to be making products like beer and bread and all that kind of stuff too. So, you need a place to store that. So, the storage yards don't require any special cards or anything. And then the other two I saw in my playthrough so far are the farm fields. And that one I had to unlock actually. As soon as I had one of those seed cards, like the wheat seeds card we saw, as soon as I played one of those cards or used one of those cards, then I was able to create farm fields. And the fields themselves don't require any cards. You can just place them and then pick a grain that you want to grow. So no cards on those. And then the very last thing is the roads. So you can place roads. It doesn't take cards. All right, there could be more things that unlock later that are free like that don't require cards, but those are the ones I've seen so far. Also, I should mention for all buildings, just like most city builder games, you still need to have the resources in order to build them. So in addition to the card, you still got to have the stone and the wood and whatever else is required to build that building to actually get them built. It takes more than just the card. The card lets you place the building, but then you got to go gather the resources and have them on hand to actually get it built. All right, so we're getting a little deep for a first look video. Let's change gears and take a look at the primary tech tree that the game has. Now, you won't see the tech tree at the very beginning of the game. You need to progress a little bit before it's even revealed, but it doesn't take that long. I think it showed up for me about 25 minutes into my playthrough. So here's what the tech tree looks like when you first unlock it. It's organized into columns that are unlocked as you reach new eras, they call it. And once you've completed researching 4 items, say in era 1, then era 2 is unlocked and you can kind of pick from that, and so on and so on and so on. As you unlock technologies in one era, a certain number of them, then the next era gets unlocked and you can choose from those too. So right now, it looks like there's a total of 8 eras in the game. It is still in early access, so I don't know if that's going to be expanded or not. But there's plenty in there to research already, so you'll be plenty busy picking things to research with what's already in the game. Okay, so here's some footage of where I'm currently at in the game. This will give you a little idea of what a town might look like after a few hours of playing. I'd say that Kingdoms Reborn plays like other city builders in the sense that you have villagers. Those villagers have needs that you work to provide for. And then as your town grows, your villagers start having additional, more complex needs that must be met. Your production buildings get leveled up. Your housing buildings get leveled up. All that kind of stuff that we're pretty familiar with in these kind of games. You also have competitor villages on the map that you can either befriend or sabotage in any number of ways. That's pretty cool. I won't go into the detail here on that, but there's a lot you can do with the other competitor villages on the map. And then all the core things that you're expecting to be in a really good city builder game, they're all in here as well. But I think Kingdoms Reborn adds a bunch of new dimensions to the game, and I think the game has really a great deal of depth to it, especially being early access. Now, I don't know when they started working on the game or how long it's been in early access. I suppose you could look that up if that's interesting to you, but there is a lot of depth in the game so far already, in my view. It's in early access, and then they just released a very big update just before I started playing, so it is still undergoing development. In fact, I think a big update just dropped like a week before I started playing it. So that involved being able to build multiple villages and some more stuff. You can head over to the Steam page and learn more about that. But my point is they are actively developing this. So not all the games on my channel play like AAA titles. So I understand that. I do a lot of early access or even pre-early access games from indie developers. But Kingdoms Reborn does definitely play like a AAA game. And again, they are still adding content. So that is very cool. If you like city builders, I highly suggest you check this one out. As I mentioned, I'll be posting a Let's Play series for Kingdoms Reborn, so check that out if you want to see more. And that's it for now. If you like this video, then you must check out the other games I have in my First Looks playlist. Seriously, there's a bunch of awesome games in that playlist and many that I bet you have not heard about. So check that out if you're interested in new games. And for now, this is Glidercat saying thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.